Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to today's session over here. So as usual, okay, we'll get started. And we'll look into the events for the week to take note of, and then I'll jump onto the charts to share with you some of the opportunities to take note of. Then of course after that, we'll do a bit of a Q&A. So if you have any questions, okay, you can feel free to put it up into the chat. I'll be able to monitor and look at them. Okay, and yeah, also update you a bit in terms of yeah, then I'll also update you a little bit in terms of the PAM account, right? So for those of you interested, later on you can find out a bit more about that as well. Okay, just want to make sure all the technical aspect is good. Okay, yeah, okay, should be fine. Right, so good. Let's get started. Okay, so this week here is pretty important. I would say there are definitely some news that you want to pay very close attention to. Okay, on Wednesday we have the US CPI, which is definitely very important. Because right now we're basically looking at whether the Fed will have another hike by the end of this year, or we're basically hitting the peak of interest rate. Right? And a couple of things that the Fed is considering. Okay, number one is of course the inflationary part of things, which is CPI year-on-year data. Okay, and of course the second is how resilient the US economy is, right? So far it seems to be quite resilient. Now there are talks about potential recession and things like that, but economic data seems to suggest otherwise, right? And that's where we did see the US dollar continue to strengthen even with talks of potentially a recession and potentially the interest rate may be peaking. Okay. So this week here you can see generally on Wednesday we have the CPI, which is inflation data. And if you look at Thursday, we have the we have the retail sales as well as the PPI coming in, right? So those are economic related, and of course CPI is inflation related. Okay, now right now, you can see the expectation is CPI to be released at 3.6, which will be an increase from 3.2. Now, if we do indeed get a very high CPI, then it increases the probability where the Fed will indeed do one more hike, right? Maybe in November or December, and from that perspective, for that reason, we may see the dollar being supported a little bit more, right? Especially if we can get a surprise element on the CPI data. Then on Thursday, we have the retail sales and the PPI, right? So if again, the data suggests that the US economy is pretty resilient, right? So we have good data from retail sales, we have good data from PPI. Then the dollar will likely strengthen again because that opens up the door where the Fed may consider, yeah, let's just do one more hike, right? Because if the economy is great, that's likely what they're going to do, right? But of course, the opposite is true, right? If CPI comes in not as high as anticipated, okay, maybe it can come in about 3.2, 3.3, or even 3.1, then it's not as high, it's not as, inflationary pressure is not as great. And if let's say the US data coming in terms of core retail sales, in terms of PPI, is lower than expected, okay, then we may see the dollar actually sell off, right? And of course, from a technical point of view, which we'll jump into the chart later on, dollar index seems to suggest that we may be getting at least a pullback, right? Which means we're seeing dollar weakness from this week's in terms of the technical perspective. Okay. Now the other news that you probably want to take note of this week is the ECB. Okay, so we do have the monetary policy statement coming from Euro this week here on Thursday as well. Okay, so not much of a change in interest rate in terms of the expectation. So just keep an eye on maybe the press conference, when there's some things that were mentioned that might shift the market. Okay. So the focus for this week in terms of events will be Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, so with that said, let's jump into the dollar index chart, right? So this is the technical perspective, right? So as you can see, what I mentioned that from a TA technical point of view, we're looking at the dollar weakness, okay? Because right now what we have is a completed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And often, if that's the completed 5-wave structure, we expect a simple 1, 2, 3 pullback towards wave 4 territory. Okay, and on top of that, we kind of get a minor little crawl over here, which we start to see a little bit of a pushback to the downside. So we're seeing early sign that the reversal is indeed coming, right? So for us to take a trade, obviously we won't be just jumping in from here, but the idea is we can get a little bit more to the downside and wait for a corrective pullback. Then that would naturally be a sell trade with a target at 102.95. Okay, so technical perspective quite clear. If we can get an alignment with the fundamental point of view, CPI is not as high as what people expect. The U.S. economy starts to show sign of weakness. Okay, and the Fed, may start to pivot and say, okay, that's it. We're probably not to. There's no need to hike it another time. And that may shift the dollar positioning, right? And that's where we'll look for that sell trade going into the week. Okay, so with dollar index potentially coming down, then we're looking at potentially buying up the euro dollar. Okay, so euro dollar here from a technical point of view, we have a completed 1, 2, 3 as well. We came into the fib territory. Very nice little reaction, slowing down as well as the market react from there. So we're basically waiting for a breakout to the upside. Okay. And again, very, very simple. We're just looking at price retracing back to the previous swing high here, around 1.0945. And that's our target, right? If you kind of put the fibs from swing high to swing low, that basically come very, very close to the 50% mark as well. Right? So euro dollar is quite clear, right? Basically, we just wait for the push up, wait for a corrective pullback, and of course, that will be a buy trade to the upside. Okay, very, very straightforward and simple structure, right? After a 3-wave move, expect a deeper pullback. Pound dollar, more or less the same, but I'm a little bit more conservative on the pound dollar because pound dollar here in terms of fits, we only have a completion of a 3-wave. Okay, but if you look from the bigger move here, this is not 1:1, right? It's only around 61% of this entire move. So the expectation here is, yes, we may still get the pullback, but this pullback may just be a completion of this 3-wave. And then from here, we may still see one more drop. Okay, so I'm a little bit cautious on the pound dollar. That's why a little bit on the neutral side of things. We are expecting short term, still going higher, maybe from the dollar weakness. But somewhere around this zone here is where you want to pay very close attention. The pound dollar may continue to drop from there on. Okay, so GBP USD, I'm actually just a little bit more neutral right now. Aussie dollar, did came up a little bit deeper than what I anticipate. But the structure did not change overall. I mean, right now this can still be seen as a corrective move in comparison to this drop. So we may still see some sell opportunity from there. I do have a sell here that we kind of took the trade off, right? Because I have a trailing stop just about here. It just tagged us out today, so this is the profits that we managed to catch. Yes, I did give away like, whatever it is, but better than nothing, right? So Aussie dollar, I'm still generally short-term bearish. Okay, I think if we go down to the hourly going forward, you give it another 1 or 2 days. If this forms a crawl here on the hourly, I think we may still get one more trade to the downside, right? So we can use the breakout maybe of the swing low, stop loss at the high, and then a target at the bottom here. I think, the risk reward is naturally worthwhile. Okay, so Aussie dollar, there is still an opportunity depending on the next 1 or 2 days, how price is going to develop from here, right? If you get a crawl, great. We have a short-term sell trade. Again, the target is just back towards the bottom at 6320. Okay, yeah, so something like that is still expected, right? To complete the 5-wave move to the downside. Okay, so that's an Aussie. Dollar CAD is moving nicely, right? So this is actually a trade that we managed to take last Friday. Okay, very, very simple trade. We kind of mentioned that this is a crawl. Again, this entire piece basically, you can see the momentum is lacking as it's going up. So again, suggests a reversal is likely coming, and of course we have this 5-wave structure. Not the most ideal, but it's still typically a 5-wave structure. So we're expecting a simple pullback, right? And we kind of took the breakout there, and basically it's moving pretty neat right now. the expectation, of course, is a simple three-wave move, right? So if you kind of get this here, I mean, if you did not manage to catch the breakout, okay, then what you can do is wait for a pullback correctively, and of course, that would still be a sell trade to the downside, with a target very, very conservatively around 1.3490. Now, if you are going for a little bit more of an extended target, there's a good probability that price may even go lower. This is the 50% mark, right? Which is going to give you around 3390, 3395 area. Okay, another 100 pips of room. Okay, so you can set like TP1, TP2 areas, right? So any corrective pullback, look for the sell. I think the direction is quite clear cut. Dollar yen. Okay, so dollar yen here is a little bit to the upside, but you just want to be slightly careful. I mean, in terms of risk to reward, you just need to assess, is it something that is worthwhile for you? Because if you're gonna take that trade somewhere around there, it stops bottom. The targets here is about just about 1:1. Okay, so for me, these are trades that I will not really pay too much attention to, because we'll definitely have better opportunities somewhere else that will pay more attention. So, you know, while we are generally expecting another pushback towards 148.20, there are better ones to keep an eye on, right? So this is something that I don't really focus too much, right, when I see something like this. But of course, you know, some of you are very, very focused into specific currencies, right? Some of you are like, I only trade the euro, I only trade the dollar yen. Okay, then you know, hopefully this will still be able to add value to that, because then, you know, from this perspective, you'll be focusing a little bit more on upside, right? So if you go down to lower time frame, again, you know, for you to get involved in the buy, ideally this should be a crawl. Okay, then of course you can look for the buy trade to the upside. Okay, so that's on dollar yen. Gold. Okay, gold here, I think it's setting up a very nice little sell opportunity. Okay, so we kind of get a very nice rejection of that 1950. Again, you know, we kind of mentioned that after three wave, you don't try to trade there, right? You may get a sell, right? But I did not really sell this to the downside on gold. We're basically monitoring it, and then by the time, you know, the market just dropped, right? So we kind of anticipate a potential reversal, but we did not have the setup that we want. So after this drop, we are seeing right now is this seems to be corrective, so we may get another opportunity here, where, you know, if the market of course just come down a little bit, it's not too bad, but it opens up the possibility where this can actually drop lower, right, in terms of like the entire bigger channel. Again, of course, this can always be readjusted, right? So that's the reason why we don't just trade off the channel. But this opens up the possibility where if this really doesn't just drop here, but it reaches all the way down, then your risk reward is going to be very significant. Okay, so that's that possibility and the potential there. So for that reason itself, right, I think gold here is definitely worth monitoring around that 50 and 618 pullback to see if we can get a sell opportunity. You know, if it's a short term, it's okay. If this actually kicks off and go way lower, then of course that would be something that we probably do not want to miss. Okay, so what you can do is you can go down to maybe slightly lower time frame over here. Okay, if you kind of take away some of this fibs to use the lower time frame perspective of fibs, right? So we're gonna take the 1:1, kind of pretty much there. So what I'll do is, yeah, that's not ideal, right? So what I'll do is I'll go back to the 50 and 618. The idea here is you want to see a very clear three-wave move, right? I mean, right now, this may be a little bit shallow. I mean, again, these are all reference. It does not need to go to the 50. But I want to see a very clear three-wave, right? I mean, this three-wave is a little bit too short, too small. It happened a little bit in terms of time duration, too short, right? That's what I meant. Ideally, this should be 1. This should come down 2, and then we will see 3. Then somewhere there is where we're going to sell, right? So in terms of time perspective, ideally, we should be around the Wednesday and Thursday zone. So the earliest trade that comes to you on gold on an hourly time frame should be somewhere between Wednesday to Thursday. So anything from now until Wednesday, you just want to wait, okay? Because based on the corrective structure, the time that you should give it is somewhere until Wednesday, right? So that's where you need to just be a little bit patient onto it. Okay, but once we can get that, I think that sell trade is definitely very attractive. Okay, so keep an eye on gold, right? I mean, the setup is not today, it's not tomorrow, but on Wednesday onwards, that's where the opportunity is. Okay. Crude oil here, definitely you want to be focusing on a little bit more of a pullback. Okay, now this is developing as a crawl, right? Very, very obvious. So don't buy anymore, but don't be too aggressive in selling yet. Okay. So you want to be waiting for a bounce down. Okay. Again, on the hourly, what you can do is to wait for the price to go up a little bit more. Okay, and it starts to show signs of coming down. Then of course you can take the next swing low, which is here, for a potential breakout, right? So the idea is then your stop loss is above here, your entry is here. If price breaks this impulsively, great. You want to at most expect a corrective pullback, and this would likely continue to drop. Okay, so simple 1, 2, 3, and that will be the trade to the downside, short term. Okay, so let me bring you back to the H4. That's what you want to be seeing. Okay, you can trade aggressively on the lower time frame, the first impulsive break. If not, wait for the break, wait for the corrective pullback, and then that's your short-term trade to the downside. Now this is, I don't think crude oil is gonna be like a major move back down. The momentum to the upside is definitely strong, right? And there's no reason to be looking at like long-term sell. Okay, so the bias here you can see, basically it's a short-term bearish move. As long as price is still above 77 or $78, I think overall direction in the longer term is still generally outside, right? It's just that from week to week, sometimes you can trade the retracement back down. Right, so that's on crude oil. S&P, again, very, very nice. Okay, this is another solid trade we managed to trade last week. Where we have this 1, 2, 3, very nice little crawl. Now we did not catch the goal, but this is a setup that we have. Okay, gold more or less the same, but that crawl you see is not as clear as the S&P, right? So same pattern, same structure, different asset, slightly clearer on S&P, and that's the trade we took. Very simple, we took a breakout trade here. Our take profit was just here, and then, you know, in a very short span of time, within the week, we managed to tag us around at 50, get out of the trade in TP, and right now we see a little bit of bounce, right? So again, I want to share with you, take note of the pattern, right? So once you can identify some of these patterns here, they are high probability. In the future, if you identify them again, you know, that's where your opportunity comes. Now for me this week, S&P, I'm actually neutral, right? Because of the reaction here is pretty sharp. It opens up quite a bit of possibility of how the market can eventually develop from here, right? Because this comes correctively, we may start to see more upside, right? Which means this 1, 2, 3, this is done. Okay, the pullback is done, 50% is done, and we can see upside. Now, what can also develop is this can come down, and then this can go back up. If this entire piece is still corrective in 3, then this opens up one more drop. Okay, so we need to really see going forward how price is going to develop first. So right now, I don't have that information. So we'll just be neutral. Okay, I mean, by maybe Wednesday or Thursday, then we may have a little bit more information to assess is the probability higher to the upside or to the downside, and then we can focus on the direction. But for now, not clear, right? So we just stay out, just be patient. Pound yen came very close, but haven't really tagged there. Short term, we're bearish, but I think definitely you do not want to be selling. I mean, you know, we were bearish here. So after this move here, I think we came very, very close today. And we did have a bit of a reaction to the upside. So moving forward, we may be a little bit more towards neutral or even starting to look for buy opportunity, right? Because the expectation here is this may come back down, maybe deep a little bit, and then we'll start to look and see if we can get involved in the buy. Right? So something like that, very, very similar. So I would say, now, this was done in the morning, so I would say this will probably start to shift a little bit towards neutral first, And then depending if we can get a nice little crawl here, we may start to look for buy, right? Okay, so you can see here, right? Basically, we can mention, you're basically getting close to a target. So any sell, you just want to manage it and potentially start to take profit off the trade. Okay, so do keep an eye. I think, again, maybe by Thursday for this week, if you can get something like this coming into the territory, again, slow into this zone, then of course you can use a breakout trade to the upside, right? So basically, this is like simple 1 2 3 respecting the channel, very corrective in nature, and then you just use the fractal nature of things. So this is a corrective move to the downside, and then if you can get a smaller corrective move here, then of course that increases the odds and the probability of upside. Okay, so I think GBP/USD, we may start to monitoring this for buy, but we need to give it at least another 2 to 3 days, right? Yeah, so pound yen, just be a little bit more patient, give it another 2 or 3 days. Okay, now euro pound is something that you may be interested right now. Okay, depending on whether you are someone who trades the euro pound as well, right? Because for me, I don't really like trading euro pound, but this is a valid setup, right? So we have yeah, I mean, this structure you can see again is one after another and in opposite direction. Okay, so you can see here 1 2 3, right? And basically what we're expecting here is 1 2 3, right? Which is basically that but flipped. Okay, mirror it the opposite. And of course we're also expecting an internal 1 2 3 here. Okay, so we are looking at price kind of testing the zone right now. This can obviously come down a little bit more to test the bottom of the channel, but as long as price is above this low, right, the chance of this going up is higher. Okay, and you definitely want to focus on the buy trade for now. Okay, until the market actually breaks off that, then of course you don't be buying it anymore. Right? So what it means then, of course, if any buy trade you're looking at, the stop loss has to go below that swing low, and then of course your target is the top here. Risk reward not too bad, right? Can give you at least about 1:3. Okay. So euro pound is generally a very corrective market itself. You can see how it's just basically chopping around that. So if you're looking to trade this, then obviously your trade is likely just going to be this leg up. Okay, because from here this may start to come back down. It's going to develop whatever it wants, but I think if you can just catch this, you'll probably be happy to just get out on that trade there. Okay, so we're basically in the territory now around like 0.8560, 8550, right, around that zone, and then your target is somewhere around 8640, and your stop has to be below 8520. Okay, so yeah, for those of interested in euro pound, that's basically the analysis of that. Aussie yen, don't touch it. Basically this is just not clear. There are many possibilities of what pattern you can eventually develop into, and then right now we don't have that high probability factor. Okay, so whenever we encounter something that it can be this, it can be that, it can be another one, and then the probability of all of that happening is more or less equal, then you don't want to be focusing on it, right? You want to focus only on trades that can give you at least maybe about 60% probability and upside. Okay, that means 60% and more. Then you want to pay a little bit more attention. If things are just 50-50, you probably just avoid it and let it develop until it shows you something that has higher probability, right? So Aussie yen right now is basically a 50-50 thing. Okay, so just avoid that. Pound Australia, there are a potential trade. There's definitely a potential trade to look for the downside. Okay, now the FIT comes in around 618, so we are expecting at least a small minor pullback right now. If I'm gonna take a FIT, potentially something like this towards the 50 and the 618. Okay, we can of course shift this a little bit lower here. That's the invalidation point, which means that as long as price remains below this low, we're gonna be looking at sell. Okay, and of course this here would ideally be developing as a 3-wave move, and then we'll look for more downside. Right, so very simple structure. Okay, so this week, if you can get a 3-wave corrective pullback towards 1.9590, 1.9630, that will be a sell trade. Okay, so of course, depending on how aggressive you are, a more conservative stop will be above that swing high, and then your target is down here, right? So about 2.5 risk to reward as a swing trade. If you're a little bit more aggressive, you may even shift your stops a little bit lower, then your risk reward become 1:4 point something, closer to 1.5, 1:5, right? Yeah, so pound Aussie is definitely an opportunity this week as well. But I think this will probably only come to you like Thursday or Friday. Okay, so just be a little bit patient from now until then. But pound Aussie definitely opens up that opportunity. Okay, now you have came up quite a bit, right? So this pullback here essentially is just completing a very simple pullback in 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then after that, it may still rally, right? But again, we don't worry about too much now, but we just focus on this sell first. Okay, if you can get the setup to come to us. Okay. BTC, nothing there, honestly. The crypto market has been very quiet for the last 1 or 2 months. Just stay out of it. Okay, don't try to catch something when the market is not moving. You know, when it's doing this, there's no way you're gonna make money out of it. Okay, so just be patient, leave it aside. Cool. Great. Some other indices to talk about. Okay, so this one here, this is getting a little bit towards a neutral point of view, I would say. It's basically developing something like this right now. Okay, which is not ideal to be trading, right? Because we kind of may have completed that 3-wave pullback. Now, for those of you who can't decipher, you know, what's happening here, basically a VIC, you know, something like that, a rejection, is that the market actually went up once and it came down fast, right? So if you kind of look forward, okay, as time plays out, it actually went up first and then it came down. And right now, what you see is this 1, 2, 3. So again, you know, this little move ended there and did not move lower. So it may be building up into something as, you know, this is a 3-wave move, and therefore this is 1, 2, and this may go back up first, right? Maybe retest that and then maybe another move down or even break out. So for that reason, that's why I say, you know, now it's not as clear cut as what we want. So my take is, you know, if you can avoid and be patient on this, maybe you don't want to trade. Okay, I mean, this index is basically the China market, okay, 850, right? So you probably just want to be a little bit more patient onto that. Yeah, Hang Seng has nothing as well. Basically, it's a strong rejection back now, so it's a V shape. You don't want to be touching this for now. Okay, so avoid the Hong Kong and the China market for now. Okay, let me just very quickly scan through other indexes and see if there's anything worthwhile to note. Yeah, this should probably give it a bit more time to untouch that as well. Okay, not the best either, right? I mean, this pattern here has a couple of different scenario of happening. I mean, it can even develop into an expanding. Okay, it can develop into a, sorry, let me just readjust that. Okay, it can potentially develop into an expanding flat, right? So I think right now, yeah, probably don't want to touch this. I mean, generally, I think most of the index right now, you just want to be a little bit more patient. Yeah, because this may happen, right? It may come back. I mean, come out in waves, right? Obviously, it's not just gonna drop immediately. But this is something that can develop. So yeah, you want to just wait. Okay, I think there's nothing much that you potentially can trade this week here. Okay, so just wait off. Okay, even if this comes down, I don't think it's gonna complete this week. Okay, so probably nothing much there. Yeah, so yeah, the index, just avoid trading them this week. Okay, leave it entire of this week. Come back next week and see how it goes. Okay, Euro Yen. Euro Yen, we may be getting something, but the idea here is quite similar to, I'll put it, it's quite similar to the pound yen, right? To be honest, you take a look at this. We want to see a crawl here, and basically that's what I mentioned in pound yen just now, right? I typically want to see a crawl here in an upside, so it's quite similar. Okay, we want to see a little bit more of the deep to the downside, but we want it slow. We want it slow, and then of course you can use the breakout point for your trade to the upside. Okay, so the direction wise quite straightforward. Just focus on upside, but wait for the setup to come, right? Which is basically a crawl. You want a crawl to happen first. Pound Canadian, the suggestion here is just be a little bit patient. We may be still seeing a little bit of a deeper pullback. I mean, the market has completed a three-wave move. Okay, and we're basically testing that zone right now, right? Okay, so my suggestion and my take here is you probably don't want to touch it this week. Okay, I mean, this can come down a little bit more, but you know, it's probably not gonna just drop very fast, and we're still expecting eventually a deeper pullback. Okay, so I would personally just avoid spending too much time focusing on the trade like here. Okay, I'll probably just wait off and see if I can come back next week, see how it develops into clearer things, and then we'll only look for a trade. Okay, another thing to note, right? If we have such a range environment, okay, and the market is in a roughly in the middle of it, it's not in an ideal spot to be taking a trade, right? Ideally, you want to be looking at buy at the bottom and then sell at the top, right? When it's in the middle, your profit potential is not as great. Okay, and again, another factor that I use to kind of filter off some of the trades so that I don't, I don't have too many things on my plate, right? Yeah, so pound cat again is not something I want to spend too much time. Aussie cat, you may have a sell here. Okay, again, this is a smaller little corrective structure, right, which is pretty ideal. If you go down to the lower time frame, okay, if you go down to lower time frame, you may need to be just a little bit more patient, I would say. Okay, so what can develop over here would be potentially something like that, right? Maybe another corrective move back down and then this development, right? So the market tends to move in tree, right? So we kind of have this little three-wave structure there. Okay, and of course we're also expecting a three-wave structure here. And then as a whole, we're basically expecting a bigger three-wave, right? So if all this label, I think it makes a little bit clearer for you to understand what we're talking about. This is the area here. This is the area here, right? Yeah, so I would personally suggest not to be focusing on this buy, right? Because it's really, really small. But you just want to maybe, with that hourly perspective in mind. Okay, so some of this I need to just adjust it. Okay, good. So with this in mind, this is what you'll be looking out for. So I would say, give it a bit of time, maybe around like Wednesday, going into Wednesday and Thursday. Ideally, you should see price somewhere there already, right? So the idea is it comes out a little bit more, maybe tomorrow, and then, by building into Wednesday and Thursday, this starts to go up. That will be the area to look for that sell. So you're basically trading this 1, 2, 3. Okay, and your target is just here, right? Of course, you can take partial, then your final. Alright, so that's an odd cat. The Aussie franc, we did not really get that move down, right? So we kind of get a little bit of a corrective, and then the market just basically went up today to test this high. So yeah, my take is, again, we look at it in waves of three, right? So this is 1, 2, 3. This came down. This didn't move lower. So what this eventually starts to build is this may be a reset for a bigger 1, 2, 3, right? So if I can put that into perspective, we can use a channel here to give us some visual guidance. Okay, and of course that would build into this 1, 2, 3, right? So what can again develop is quite similar. This may come back down first, and then this may push back up to have that internal 1, 2, 3 to complete the bigger tree, and then this will probably still come back down eventually after that. Okay. Yeah, so that will be my primary take. Okay, that would be my primary take. So this would probably come down correctively and then push back up, and then maybe from there one more drop. Okay. So if you're looking at this here, at least within this week, then you may be looking at maybe a potential short-term buy, right? I mean, if you can get a corrective pullback in 3, then you can look for a short-term buy. Yeah, so that's an Aussie franc. Yeah, so we kind of get an initial return. That was very, very long time ago. Okay. Nothing there. I don't like trading into something again, it's basically in this range. There's no pattern, there's no real clarity. I mean, most of the francs are like that, right? In fact, unless you go to like super high time frame, like maybe the daily, yeah, it's not the most ideal pair also, because the idea is if we get this to push up and we can't see a crawl there, that will be a nice sell. I mean, but you're still catching this only, right? So the idea is this is a 1, 2, 3, and then internal here you see a crawl. Okay, of course that means momentum is lacking, and then you can look for a sell. That's about it, right? I mean, that's basically the only way to look at in terms of like pound franc. Okay, short term a little bit upside, but around the zone you probably face some resistance there and some reaction to the downside. Okay. DJI, NASDAQ. Dow Jones. Okay, Dow Jones. The analysis is basically still the same. Okay. I think we're still likely gonna get one more drop, right? 1, 2, 3. So this expectation is basically still there, right? Nothing much has changed. I think we're still expecting downside for DJI. Okay. Do I have a NASDAQ ticker here? Who's this? It's not. Okay, I did not have an analysis that's updated in NASDAQ. Don't use this? Oh no. Okay. I think if I don't have, I'll probably just do it one for you then. Go ahead. Okay. Never mind, I'll just update the analysis right now. Just basically use this. Right? Use the CFD side of things. Okay, so I think on NASDAQ, the clearest thing that we can immediately identify is this three wave is done. Okay, and the market seems to be developing a pullback, right? So that is where we'll likely look towards that 50 and 618. Okay, and of course, it seems like we are doing this as a 1, 2, 3, right? So that's what we're expecting right now. So I think there is also a little bit of a downside, but it's not the most ideal trade to look for the sell. Again, because this pullback seems to be a little bit fast. Okay, if you look at the pace here, it's almost like a V, right? So it's something that I won't again be focusing too much. But if let's say we just wait, and if this starts to do something like that, okay, then yeah, that seems to be a little bit clearer to sell. Or if this just decides to come back down, then maybe there's a crawl here, then I'll be more interested in the buy from there. Okay, so this can complete that, and then we'll look for the buy, right? Yeah, I think that's generally the thing, right? Yeah, so that's the next. I did some here. No, I don't know which sticker symbol I used to put in the analysis. Is this? No. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I don't really look at NASDAQ a lot, right? Most of the time I just look at S&P as a general index. Okay. Yeah, so I can't remember which particular data feed I use. I think, but last time some of you mentioned as well, so I did use it to put in some analysis, but I can't remember like which sticker. Okay, yeah. So that's clear. Good. Okay, so I think that's basically it for today. Yeah, so I'll just do a very quick update. Now some of you are in the PAM account already. Some of you are still considering. Some of you maybe have no idea what it is. Okay, but I just want to show you the latest performance, right? Okay, I mean this is current, so I'll just do a quick refresh on the page, right? So we do have a couple of trades running, right? But we'll leave it as it is right now. Just want to update you in terms of the performance. Since we launched this in May until now in September, for September so far it's just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, but we have good, really solid months, and of course we have decent months, right? Some months are a little bit slower. But basically this is the PAM account performance, right? PAM meaning it stands for Percentage Allocation Management Module. Of course, today I won't go into details of it. It takes time. But I just want to update. You have the opportunity, if you're keen, to tag along this account. Basically, very similar concept of like piggybacking onto the trades that we take. You can follow it automatically, right, via the PAM feature in the PAM system. Okay. And of course we don't charge anything. There's just a simple kind of like profit sharing system and module. So of course with whatever profits is made, we just take a small percentage of that, and then majority of the profits will go back to the investors and things like that. So again, if you are very new to that and you would like to understand a little bit more in terms of how you can piggyback on the trades, you can follow on the trades that we take on this account. Okay. Again, if you're watching now on Zoom, okay, the team will give you the link to a WhatsApp. If you're watching it on the YouTube stream right now, okay, there's also a link at the description below the YouTube. You'll be able to also click on that link. It will direct you to the WhatsApp, and then you'll be able to reach out to the team from Everything Trading and ask them a little bit more about PAM, how you can get started and things like that. Okay, we did a webinar just last Saturday, really going into the details of the PAM and things like that. I'm not sure if they do still have that recording. Okay, but of course, if you are interested in this, you want to find out a bit more information, do reach out to the team. They'll be able to assist you. Okay. Okay, good. I think I missed out one pair, right? I think one of you is asking about EuroCat. Let me just very quickly jump back in. Okay. Okay, so let me just re-update this a bit. Let me see on the bigger scale first. Okay. Okay, on a daily perspective, I think one thing that is clear is that we have this as a potential. We may see this as a 5-wave structure completed. Okay, I mean the details of where that one is it here, is it here, is it here? I think that's not the most important aspect now, right? We have completed that. And from there we're seeing potentially a 3-wave move down, right? So 1, 2, 3 potentially, right? So that's on the daily scale. Again, have this completed, we'll probably need to assess it on the lower time frame, but I'm just giving you the big picture perspective. Okay. So going down to the 4-hour, yeah, that seems huge. Okay. Again, we don't get an immediate, very clear structure. Okay, but one thing that stands out to me is this very corrective. Okay, and often I see something like that. There's a good chance this will go back up. Okay, so that opens up a few possibility, and the question is, is this the peak? And that means that, if that's a peak, this may have completed that move, and this pullback here may not break this, and we can still see downside, right? So that's one possibility to look out for it, right? So things are developing in terms of one, then this is a three-wave move, and then this is one, this is a three-wave, smaller three-wave, and then this is a bigger 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's one possibility to look at things. Now, alternatively, what can happen is this is one, this is basically a three-wave corrective move in the middle piece, and this can go back up and break that top. That only may be the down move, right? So what would give us a little bit more information as to like which has a higher chance of happening will be from here on how the market goes up, if it eventually goes up, right? If it goes up fast and it starts to form a correction here, and this builds the possibility that we may see more upside. Okay, now if this starts to just do a ding dong, okay, basically corrective move like that, then it builds in the possibility where we may see more downside. Okay, so again, you realize that we don't have a very obvious straight away part, right? So that's why just now I did spend a bit of time to see, what's happening on a bigger scale, because on a bigger scale, it does suggest that this is one. So even if this goes back up and break this top, this can be entire corrective nature, and then we still see one drop. Okay, or what can also be developing is basically this is one, this is two, this is starting to drop. Okay, so the bigger time frame gives us a little bit more clarity in terms of the direction. It's likely still bearish. I mean, the potential trade is still focusing on the downside. It's just a matter of, on the daily perspective, are we looking at sell somewhere there, or are we looking at the sell at the top, right? At least for the daily, that's what we're looking at. Okay, so on the 4-hour, you basically need to see how the market develops here. Yeah, so that's my take on Euro Canadian. Okay, so yep. Okay, we have another webinar. Let me just check. Okay, we have one more webinar coming on 24th of September. Okay, so it's actually 2 weeks from now. So 24th of September is actually a Sunday. Okay, so yeah, we are making another well, let me just drop this there, right? Yeah. So for those of you interested to register for this webinar, to get the link to join in for this webinar, again, just like I briefly mentioned about the PAM, right? So yeah, if you're interested to find out a little bit more from there about this, how you can leverage on PAM, how you can follow the trades, etc. Yeah, we have another webinar coming in on the 24th of September. It's a Sunday from 3 p.m. to about 4 plus p.m., right? So again, if you're interested to register for the webinar, to join that webinar, is free. Okay, it's free. Again, do reach out to the team via WhatsApp. Again, on Zoom, you have the link. Okay, on YouTube, you go to the description below. You can find the link to the WhatsApp as well. Yeah, it's on Zoom, right? So you probably need to take, you need to register to get the webinar link. Okay, so yeah, it's international, right? So it's on Zoom, it's online. Okay, all you need to do is just register and then get the link, and then you'll be able to join it. Okay. Good, so that's all from me for today. All the best to trading, okay, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next session. Okay, so see you guys. Bye bye.